welcome you to the synopsis on the Union Budget 2016-17. Before I begin with the key announcements made in the budget, let me share with you what our economy has gone through in the last few years. We have had a lot of challenges as well as opportunities. Now, few of the challenges have been: there has been a global slowdown. The bank balance sheets are under stress. The rural sector is also under stress. We have 2 consecutive years of drought and a stalled private sector capex. Amongst others, we also have the policy logjam in terms of the key reforms that are to be taken place. Whereas the opportunities and positives are, we have a 7% plus GDP growth rate, even sustaining during this year. Crude prices are on their lows. Low current account deficit, low consumer price inflation, and also the wholesale price inflation. Political stability with our government being formed, and rising global image and status of our economy. Now, given the context, the Union Budget 2016-17 is largely on expected lines. The budget ushers in consistency and clarity in thought. Also, stability on the policies and taxation front. In our assessment, the following are the key priorities of this government. First, adhering to fiscal discipline. The government has stayed on course for meeting its fiscal deficit targets, that is 3.9% of GDP in financial year 16 and 3.5% of GDP in financial year 17. This is despite the increasing pressure on the government's budgets due to the allowances out of the 7th Pay Commission and also the implementation of the Defence One Rank One Pension Scheme. This is a welcome development to stay on course, as this will also help the government to borrow less from the markets, and it will also give a chance for the RBI to give room to the RBI to cut policy rates and also leave more resources for the private sector. So the government borrowing from markets stands reduced to 4.25 lakh crore. Second, targeting of subsidies to the deserving. Now, the government is looking to ensure the targeted delivery of subsidies and the financial assistance to the actual beneficiaries. Now, initiatives to minimize government and maximize governance in this area is being planned and proposed to meet the objective of effective transfer. One classic example which all of you must be aware is the direct benefit transfer. So a bill is being proposed to be introduced for targeting of the financial and other subsidies through the Aadhaar framework. Is planned to be introduced. So as DBT has been introduced for LPG, a similar DBT for the fertilizer subsidy is going to be run on a pilot basis, automating over 60% of the fair price shops, that is over 3 lakh fair price shops by March 2017. Now these initiatives have positive ramifications for the long term. This will actually reduce the fiscal burden. It will actually ensure a hassle-free transfer of subsidy to the actual beneficiaries, reduce the leakage, and have and limit beneficiaries to the deserving only. It is heartening to know that 75 lakh Indians have given up their cooking gas subsidy. Third, improving agriculture. Now, 65% of Indians directly or indirectly depend on agriculture. Now, while farmers provide the country with food security, their income security has been left out and requires immediate attention. Now, improving the income of this segment is both good socially and economically. Now, the initiatives of the government to address these objectives are widening of the irrigation coverage. At present, as only 46% of the net cultivated area is under irrigation. These projects are being taken on mission mode by the government. Major program for sustainable management of groundwater resources. A soil health card scheme is going to be introduced to bring more objectivity to crop selection and the use of nutrients and fertilizers. Creating an e-market so that for the farmers, so that their produce can be easily sold in other markets, right, and gives more value to the farmers. Effective crop insurance scheme at a very low premium to ensure that in case of failure of the crop due to unforeseen circumstances, they are compensated adequately. Steps to ensure that the minimum support price procurement for the produce by the farmers in all parts of the country, and increase in credit flow to the farmers. Fourth, allocation to the social sector and mitigating rural stress. As mentioned earlier, in respect of income security of the farmers, the government is targeting to double the income of the farmers in the next 5 years. Irrigation, creating a long-term irrigation fund under NABARD with a corpus of 20,000 crores. There will be a fast tracking of 23 irrigation projects, and with this the productive use of Manrega funds. Fertilizer subsidy under DBT as mentioned earlier. Higher allocation in grant in aid for the Gram Panchayats and the municipalities as per the 14th Finance Commission. Now this will ensure that all the Gram Panchayats will get approximately 80 lakh of rupees. This will ensure that at least the basics can be developed in small towns and villages. Crop insurance scheme of 5,500 crores is being spent by the government towards subsidizing the premium to protect farmers under the crop insurance scheme. Credit flow to farmers. There is increase in allocation to provide credit to the farmers up from 8.5 lakh crore to 9 lakh crore in promoting dairying activities with an intent to make allied farming activities remunerative. As an example, 90% of honey that is produced in the country is now exported. Highest allocation of 38,500 crores towards the Manrega. The government is also promoting organic farming in the rain-fed areas in order to increase the crop yields. 100% village electrification by 1st May 2018. Under the Swachh Bharat, around amount of 9,000 crore has been allocated. The government is creating a culture of creating constructive competition amongst towns and villages under the Swachh Bharat scheme towards the sanitation. Also, priority allocation is being given from the centrally sponsored schemes, those cities which are becoming free from open defecation. Digital literacy in rural India. Now our country has a very favorable demographics. Now to ensure that people are digitally literate is of immense importance. Now our rural households do not have access to computers. So the government through the National Digital Literacy Mission Scheme is planning to cover 6 crore out of the 12 crore rural households who do not have access to computers. Digitizing of land records. Now the government is aware of the fact that to avoid disputes in land titles, it is necessary to have a land information management system, and therefore a provision in the budget has been made for the same purpose. FDI and food processing. 100% foreign direct investment is allowed for marketing of food products produced and manufactured in India. Fifth, social welfare and social infrastructure for the masses. The budget continues to allocate and spend on the mass, covering areas such as education, jobs, healthcare, women and children, all of which have long-term and positive ramifications. Now, universal coverage of LPG, cooking gas. In the rural areas, some studies have shown that a running stove is equivalent to 400 cigarettes burning in an hour. Now, the women in the rural areas are witnessing this, and the remedy of which has been provided in the budget, the government is going to spend for the initial cost of LPG connections of 1.5 crore households during this year, which are below the poverty line. This scheme is to be continued for 2 more years to cover at least 5 crore households. The LPG connection is going to be given in the name of the woman member. Health insurance protection. Now, a new scheme by the government in terms of protection for healthcare costs is being undertaken for economically weaker sections up to 1 lakh per family, and in case of a senior citizen aged 60 years and above, an additional 30,000 rupees. Now, lakhs of households in this section fall prey due to the healthcare costs arising in the family out of the illnesses, which render them to fall into the below poverty line. To reduce this, the government has introduced this scheme for a section of the society. National Dialysis Program. Now, 2.2 lakh new patients of end-stage renal disease get added each year. Now, the dialysis costs approximately 3 lakhs per annum. Now, to reduce the cost of this treatment, various exemptions have been provided in order to reduce the cost of the equipment towards the dialysis treatments. Now, another problem is the reach. So, the government, under the National Health Mission, will ensure the dialysis treatment is given at all the district hospitals. Medicines at affordable prices. Now, attempts of reinvigorating supply of generic medicines is being garnered by opening 3,000 new centers. Higher Education Financing Agency. To improve the quality of higher education, the government has allocated 1,000 crores to finance the infrastructure in these top institutions and improve the quality of education. Digital Depository. To help the education fraternity to gain access to school leaving certificates, mark sheets, college degrees and academic awards all at one place, similar to those that you use for a securities depository. Now let us move forward with the key direct tax changes made in the budget for individuals. Now, citizens earning less than 5 lakhs per annum will receive a tax rebate of rupees 5,000 under section 87A. Now, earlier this tax rebate was 2,000 rupees. This will impact over 2 crore taxpayers. Now, those living in rented houses and also those who do not receive any house rent allowance from their employer will receive tax exemption of up to 60,000 rupees under 80GG of the Income Tax Act. This was earlier rupees 24,000 only. Good news for first time home buyers. They will receive 50,000 as additional interest tax exemption for home loans for home loan amounts of up to 35 lakhs for properties up to rupees 50 lakhs. Now, 10% tax on dividends distributed in excess of 10 lakhs, which is received by individuals, firms, HUFs under section 1150 is being introduced. This will be applicable by the dividend declared by domestic Indian companies, but not applicable for dividends received from mutual funds. Long-term capital gains for unlisted firms is reduced to 2 years. Now, under the presumptive taxation scheme, the turnover limits have been raised. This is very good for the MSME businesses, in which the turnover limit has increased from 1 crore to 2 crore. Similarly, for professionals, the turnover limits has increased from 25 lakhs to 50 lakhs. The government has given a 4-month window for individuals to declare income that was not disclosed to the income tax authorities under the income declaration scheme. Under this, the income that is declared, those individuals will have to pay 30% tax plus a surcharge of 7.5% plus a penalty of 7.5%, which sums up to 45%. Immunity will also be given to those assessees under the scheme for any kind of prosecution in the future. If one were to recall, there was a similar scheme in place in the year 1997 under the income disclosure scheme, wherein the rate for disclosing such undisclosed income during the window period was 30%, including the interest and penalty. Today the situation is the other way. It is 30% plus interest and penalty amounting to another 15%, totaling to 45%. For those who do not disclose such income during this period, and such undisclosed income is subsequently found by the income tax department, the prosecution earlier may be rigorous imprisonment, but today, given the background of the government, they are slowly moving into making tax evasion a criminal offence. The government is quite confident that the tax evaders will come up during this window period of 4 months and disclose such undisclosed income. The contribution made by the employer to the employees' provident fund of more than rupees 1,50,000 per annum will now be taxable. Now, there was no limit earlier. The government wants to move the people of this country into a pension society. For this, an announcement with respect to withdrawals from the EPF were to be made taxable, such that 60% of the corpus should be converted into a pension. If that is done, the 40% balance would be rendered as tax free. However, post the budget announcements, this has been waived off. From now on, the EPF so withdrawn will be tax free. Non-residents were subjected to a higher rate of TDS if they did not possess the PAN. To do away with this, the government is now amending the provision so that even for a furnishing of alternative documents will substitute the need of PAN. Moving on to corporate taxation. Now, the previous budget had mentioned the reduction in the corporate tax rate from 30% to 25%. However, with the condition that the exemptions will be gradually phased out. Moving on to corporate taxation. Now, the previous budget had mentioned the reduction in the corporate tax rate from 30% to 25% gradually, with the condition, of course, that the current exemptions would be phased out. This budget has continued on its stance of reducing the exemptions. On the indirect tax front, the effective rate of service tax to now increase. A new cess called the Krishi Kalyan cess at the rate of 0.5% on all taxable services will come into force from 1st June of 2016. The Krishi Kalyan cess is to be utilized for agriculture and the welfare of farmers. This is pretty much in line of moving into a GST regime where the service tax rate is closely increasing to meet the GST rate. Now let me run you through the sector specific impact on consumers. The automobile sector. Cars are set to become much more costlier. An infrastructure cess is being imposed on small petrol and CNG cars, thereby increasing their costs. Similarly, small diesel vehicles will be charged a higher rate of excise duty now onwards. This will also increase the cost, and utility vehicles also will have a higher rate of excise duty. Another introduction has been made is that passenger vehicles with a value of more than 10 lakhs, 1% tax will be collected at source. Aviation. The excise duty on the aviation turbine fuel is now increased by 6%. So earlier it was 8%, now it is 14%. This will entail a minimum of 2 or 3% increase in airline fares. Traveling by air is also set to become costlier. On the consumption sectors, jewelry is set to become expensive as the excise duty has been increased by 1%, excluding the silver jewelry. The government is keen to discourage the use of tobacco and tobacco products. For this, excise duty has been increased by minimum of 10% on cigarettes. Apparel is set to become expensive, so the excise duty on branded apparel having a retail price of 1000 rupees or more is set to become costlier. On the housing and the real estate front, now higher interest from the taxable income can be claimed for first time home buyers with house value of up to rupees 50 lakhs and with a loan value of less than 35 lakhs. Now tax rates have been lowered for affordable housing. So a normal tax rate for flats up to 30 square meters in top 4 metros and 60 square meters in other towns and cities, and all these projects registered from June 2016 to March 2019 will only pay MAT instead of normal taxes, provided they complete the construction within a period of 3 years. There is also a service tax exemption for affordable housing. Now the service tax, earlier it was 5.6%, now it is 0% for all construction of houses under the Housing for All, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. Apart from these sectors, the budget has paid heed to many other sectors. The banking sector. In the banking sector, many measures are being undertaken for the recapitalization of the banks and also the consolidation of the PSU banks. Other measures in terms of addressing the NPAs are also are underway. Also, measures to deepen the corporate bond market are being envisaged. The media sector, the import duty on the set-top boxes are now zero. In the oil and gas segment, to ensure that the investments continue in this space, the government has ensured a calibrated marketing freedom for companies engaged in deep water oil fields and difficult areas. In the metal space, the government is trying to protect the domestic steel and the metal industry. Import duty has been increased to protect domestic companies. In the infrastructure space, the government continues to spend on infrastructure. We are seeing the introduction of the public utilities resolution and disputes bill and measures to review the PPP investments. This will help the stuck projects move faster and will help also the new projects execute smoothly. Developers to raise capital as exemption of dividend distribution tax on REITs and investment infrastructure trusts have been envisaged. The allocation for roads has increased by around 30 to 40%. Similarly with the railways, power continues to be a key priority in terms of 100% village electrification, and also under the IPDS scheme there are various initiatives taken by the government to ensure power for all. Lastly, we have made considerable attempts in summarizing the key points and the announcements that have been made in the budget. For those who would like a much detailed view on the entire budget, can log on to www.indiabudget.nic.in. All in all, this budget presents a believable picture. The intent is very good, and hopefully the key that lies forward is more on the execution and how the government implements the various plans and schemes. Thank you.